The cover page indicate that Yamato continues their journey, this time visiting the grave of a hero who was born in West Blue and grew up in Ringo, guided by Joe and Kukunojo. Altai, acting carefree as always, is busy rolling a giant snowball. The story then shifts back to the Elbaf flashback, reminding us of a major event from 63 years ago, the death of Waterfall Beard Gerald, who was defeated by just one child. That child, Charlotte Lin, would later become an emperor of the sea, and despite being human, she destroyed half of a giant village. During that same year, Elbaf also faced a series of disasters: fires, strong winds, and freezing cold that wiped out their crops, turning the once green and rich land into a place suffering from hunger. Lying in bed, Queen Estid claimed these disasters were caused by a curse from Loki, though her guards said it was all just bad luck. Suddenly, a loud crack scared her as baby Loki broke through the wooden wall with a big smile, and as he looked at her, she screamed and pulled back in fear. Shaken, the queen ordered that the child never be allowed near her again. Loki cries, longing for the warmth of his mother's arms, but instead he's grabbed roughly by guards as the cold-hearted queen orders them to destroy his eyes, blaming him for all of Elbaf's suffering. Luckily, they don't follow through. But even if Loki can understand her words, he clearly feels her rejection. Somewhere else, a mother hugs her starving child, with nothing left to feed him. Desperation spreads, and some giants begin to talk about raiding human lands, claiming it's their tradition and that humans are easy targets. Others argue against it, saying such actions would betray their pride and the wishes of their king. But hunger makes people desperate, and soon, fights break out between villages, some trying to steal, others trying to protect what little they have. While Elbaf is often seen as a united kingdom, back then, its villages were barely holding together. Violence becomes common, trust fades, and countless lives are lost. Chaos covers the land, and with it, corruption grows. In the midst of it all, whispers about the prince begin to spread, at the edge of his sanity. One giant finally snaps and decides to act on his own. He storms into a house in the eastern fishing village, demanding to see Harridan and declaring that the curse of Hadruden's younger brother is to blame for all of Elbaf's suffering. He insists the boy must be offered as a sacrifice, holding his older brother responsible. Hadruden's mother, Ida, is outraged. She sees her sweet son as someone destined to live the longest life in the world, and being a giant, maybe that's even possible. But the madman ignores her pleas, dismissing her as a foreign seductress and seizing her by the throat. Still, Ida stands her ground, shouting her love for Elbaf, a love not bound by where she was born. Moved by his mother's courage, Hadruden grabs a blade to protect her, but before anything worse can happen, a massive fist crashes down. King Harald has returned, bringing with him the full weight of justice. Both Ida and Hadruden break into tears at the sight of their king, and with his powerful presence, Harald calls on the giants to stop fighting each other. While King Harald had been away, he received word of both Prince Loki's birth and the growing famine plaguing Elbaf. He had been busy forming alliances with other nations, and when news of Elbaf's crisis reached their ears, those allies acted immediately. Humans, though small in size, showed their big hearts by gathering enormous amounts of food and supplies for the starving giants. Knowing full well how much it would take to satisfy the hunger of such massive beings, they still came together without hesitation. King Harald announced that they would accept this aid with open hearts, full of gratitude. These humans, unfamiliar with the region and unsure where to even dock their ships, pressed forward anyway. Before long, the starving giants were finally able to eat again. Touched by this kindness, King Harald vowed that if the humans ever needed help, Elbaf would return the favor with everything they had, reminding his people that they all live on one small world. Meanwhile, Queen Estrid had spent her final days publicly declaring Loki as the cause of their suffering, blaming him again and again until her last breath, which came just a day before the king's return. Unaware of the queen's cruelty, Harald grieved deeply for her passing. Sadly, the people, influenced by her words, also blamed the supposedly cursed child for her death. But unaware of this judgment, the king held his son proudly in his arms, though his eyes were now covered. The guards quietly informed him that the child had a condition affecting his eyes, though he wasn't blind. King Harald accepted the explanation about Loki's eyes without asking more, but quietly mourned how the baby wouldn't even smile for him, assuming it was due to losing his mother so suddenly. When he noticed the bruises on the child's body, the guards quickly brushed it off with lighthearted talk. But even in his first few months of life, Prince Loki had already given up on love. Determined to rebuild his kingdom, King Harald began applying the knowledge he had gained from his travels, and before long, the brutal winter came to an end. He proposed using Branch 1 to improve trade and communication between Elbaf's villages, focusing all his energy on healing the fractured nation and forging connections abroad. But in doing so, he completely overlooked his role as a father. Loki was left in the care of the late queen's older brother, a heartless man just as cruel as his sister. Meanwhile, Ida created the giant pub that everyone would later recognize. Hadrudin worried aloud about being in the realm of the dead, but Ida reassured him that the coastline kept dangerous creatures at bay. She lovingly fussed over him while pouring drinks in style, gently pinching his cheeks and reminding him he was supposed to be training with someone named Elbow from the West Village, hinting at how connected Elbaf had become in just a few years. Her tavern welcomed everyone, and she hoped that in doing so, she could support the king's efforts. 56 years ago, King Harald sat down with Elder Gerald at his home. Elder Gerald was surprised to hear that King Harald had been present during a certain incident at the reverie. The king confessed that he had managed to sneak in by pretending to be a guard for a friend who was invited, but he couldn't ask the questions he truly wanted to without revealing who he was. If a certain murder hadn't taken place, his cover might have been blown, and the image of a towering giant king disguising himself as a human guard was, in hindsight, almost laughably absurd. Gerald, however, warned him that he may have been in far more danger than he realized. He asked if Harald knew the story of the Great Hammer Battalion, to which the king responded with disbelief, thinking the Warhammer-wielding crew of giant shipwrights was only a legend. But Gerald assured him they were very real. The battalion had traveled across the world, sending back countless letters to Elbaf, and he himself had received their final one. In that letter, the giants revealed they had all been captured. The idea of over 100 powerful warriors, many with ancient giant blood, being held against their will was almost impossible to imagine. Harald questioned whether the world government was behind it, and Gerald replied without hesitation that they were, explaining that the world government had once faced a mighty enemy, whose legacy and history were buried deep beneath the sea. The mere fact that Gerald knew this truth was proof enough that this wasn't some old story, it was real. Without wasting more time, the elder got straight to the point. Elder Gerald believed there was a deeper reason behind the repeated setbacks King Harald faced, one that wasn't about the king himself, but tied to something older and far more deeply rooted. Harald thought over the elder's words and came to see the weight of ancient grudges dragging them down. Gerald had even heard whispers of an entire army of giants frozen somewhere in the world, which led him to believe that giants were viewed as enemies by the global powers. Harald accepted this grim truth but remained firm in his mission. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Prince Loki endured psychological torment at the hands of his cruel uncle, who fed him trash day after day. Even Asher, the horse of fortune, eventually died, but with the queen gone and the king away, no one had truly been caring for it anyway. Years passed, and when Loki's wicked uncle was finally found dead in the realm of the dead, the prince smiled for the first time since he was a baby. 48 years ago, Elbaf stood more united than ever, and it seemed King Harald's vision was finally taking root. He spoke openly of his dream to bring people together through friendship and understanding, hoping to make giants welcome across the world. The people admired him deeply, treating him like their savior. Yet beneath that unity, cracks remained. Two of Loki's guards mocked Halfdan for being too cheerful, calling him an illegitimate child unworthy of the throne. The words struck a nerve, and Loki enjoyed watching his brother suffer for once. But while the king was away on another journey, a new crisis erupted. A village braced itself as Loki arrived with his savage beasts from the realm of the dead, declaring that Elbaf, as the world's strongest nation, had no need for the weak and that he had come to wipe them out himself. Wielding a massive bow reminiscent of Kaido's, Loki attacked without mercy, targeting women, elders, and even pets, laughing as the helpless fled in terror. But one giant refused to run. Harald stood firm, sword in hand, shouting that their father had worked too hard to rebuild what Loki was now destroying. Loki stepped up to his smaller, older brother and questioned whether Harald even had the right to call their father the king. He couldn't understand why the people respected Harald so much, thinking his dealings with humans were foolish. But Harald disagreed, urging Loki to try seeing things from others' perspectives and reminding him not to let his size fill him with arrogance, just like their mother Ida had once told King Harald. Yet his words felt empty, since he never once tried to understand Loki's own pain. Enraged, Loki beat his brother down and loudly declared his pride as Elbaf's prince. Gerd ran to help Harridan, while Goldberg tried to stop her, warning that if she showed sympathy, Loki would target her too. She smacked Goldberg and insisted they were Harridan's friends. True to her role in their crew, Gerd quickly treated his wounds. Loki watched, frustrated and bitter, as his brother was surrounded by care and concerned things he had never received himself. Hiding his hurt behind a wide, fake grin, he laughed and mocked the group as weaklings, throwing insults at Harridan's illegitimacy. His guards tried to calm him down, reminding him that Harridan was still a prince, a son of their king, but Loki refused to accept it. To him, his title and strength were all he had over his brother, and he wouldn't let go of either. In a rage, he struck his own guards. Though he spread pain and destruction, none of it could fill the emptiness inside him. When a mother clutched her child and looked at him with disgust, Loki finally broke. Overwhelmed, he tried to end it all by leaping toward the realm of the dead. But when he survived, he simply cried he couldn't even die. Not far off, a mountain was casually sliced down, and a voice wondered aloud about the strange location and its emptiness. Loki's beast companions fled in fear as a group of 4 approached. Upon finding Loki, they confirmed they were indeed on Elbaf. A young Shiki laughed at Loki's devilish expression, while Whitebeard noted that the boy was massive, even for a giant. With concern in his voice, he asked Loki why he was crying. Behind him stood Stussy, Shiki, and Whitebeard, all dressed in Wano-style attire, following their leader, a man King Harald had met 8 years earlier at the reverie. This lone man once killed a marine admiral and vanished, earning a massive bounty and the hatred of the world government. He had 2 questions for the young giant, and made it clear he wasn't a skingma, expected a yes to both. First, he wanted to know if this truly was Elbaf, land of the giants. Second, he asked whether Harald was here. And at last, the man was revealed: Rox D. Xebec, the soon-to-be captain of the Rox pirates and the father of the future Yonko, Blackbeard.